Welcome to the first episode of our musical voyages with people who I know you will enjoy listening to. It is my pleasure and privilege today to have a conversation with Richard Phillips. Richard is the accompanist of the International Staff Songsters, but is also the bandmaster at Kettering Corps and has got a tremendous reputation both as a performer and a composer. So I'm absolutely delighted that he's going to join with us today and tell us a little bit more about his musical influences. And maybe we'll find out a little bit more about Richard too as a person. So Richard, welcome and thank you so much for being willing to take part in this venture today. Can you just talk to us for a moment about the sort of musical influences you had as a child and maybe the sort of family setting you found yourself in?
Well, it's nice to be here. Thank you for asking me to do this. When I was a child, we always had a piano in the house, and Mum and Dad played the piano, usually for army things. And Dad used to play for the Songsters, and Mum played for Home League and all this kind of thing. So there was always a piano in the house, and from a very early age, I used to enjoy just bashing the piano as a kid, and then I think that got on my mum and dad's nerves, so they thought
Surely not bashing it, Richard.
so they thought they'd teach me a little tune to play. I can remember playing a one-finger tune, "When He Cometh," and this I can remember performing it in my infant school. So this was when I was 6. So that was the piano. There was an influence there.
Did they try to teach you themselves, or did they organise a teacher for you?
No,
A wise
they
move.
organised a teacher when I was 7. So that was my first kind of formal lessons. And then I can remember my dad was the band secretary, and he brought a cornet home for me when I was 4 or 5, 4, and I was so excited about that. And he kept forgetting it. He put the cornet in its case underneath his chair in the hall, and then get up, put his instrument away, and forget it was there. And I used to, have you got the cornet, Dad? Got the cornet? Ah, oh, no, left it. So it was a little bit like that, but I eventually got it and started blowing some notes, and that's where it started. There was, Mum was listening to programs like Semprini.
Yes, I remember
Remember
Semprini.
that?
Yeah.
Semprini always used to play tunes with orchestra, and that I used to love that. And kind of the Salvation Army is kind of so melody based. Its music is so melodic. That had a big influence on me.
Yeah, I guess we're both of an age where music in the house would have been on records rather than digitally, as everybody knows now. But I'd quite like us to kind of move towards the first recording that we're going to listen to. So can you just tell us a little bit about why you've chosen this?
Well, when we were down as 5 and 6 year olds, that's how old I was. There was a great film that came out, and that Mum and Dad took us to the cinema, the Rochester Odeon, bottom of Star Hill. I remember it holding my mum's hand, walking up to the bus stop just around the corner, and we'd been to see The Sound of Music, and that was a fantastic film, which really kind of light the fire for music for me, and just listening to these wonderful Richard Rodgers tunes. It was beautifully sung by one of the best singers that has ever walked this planet, in my opinion, Julie Andrews, and she was fantastic. And I have an autograph and Christopher Plummer's autograph hanging in my hallway, but that's how much it meant to me. And so, yeah, real big influence, really started engaging me in music making.
Yeah, well, I think you made a tremendous choice to start with, because I couldn't agree more that fantastic melodies, lots of fun. And so we're going to listen to now music from The Sound of Music.
Music.
Now, I was really pleased to hear that your parents sent you to piano lessons. Do you want to just talk us through a little bit about that musical journey as a pianist, and you know, the sorts of things that you learnt, and you know, going towards your time at the Royal College of Music?
Yes, started piano lessons when I was 7. Mr. Gilligan, his name was, and I stayed with him until I was aged 11. Then I went to the county kind of junior music school, which was held in Maidstone, and had kind of number of teachers from 11 to 18, I suppose.
So was that a sort of Saturday school, and did you
Yeah,
do other kind of musical activities there as well?
yeah, that's right. So used to have piano lessons and theory lessons, trumpet lessons, choir, and yeah, just and they had a little orchestra as well. So interestingly enough, during that time, Paul Beniston, who is Philip Cobb's teacher, was my second trumpet. He was my sub-principal.
Oh, I'm glad you got that in there, Richard.
It's my claim to fame as far as trumpet playing is concerned. That, yeah, I'd been there a couple of years. I'm a few years older than Paul, and so he was, you know, quite a lot younger than me. So he played second trumpet.
Oh, don't take that back. So, but why was it piano that took? I mean, I'm presuming that you spent more time on piano than you did on cornet and trumpet. Or was it equal at that stage?
Strangely enough, that qualified me pretty much as a member of the Kent Youth Orchestra. So from 11 to 18, I was a member of the Kent Youth Orchestra. I got a very high grade for my trumpet, grade 8. And at that stage, I was thinking, ooh, should I change my career here and concentrate on the trumpet? I found it much easier to play because you're only looking at one single line. And I could sign.
You could alienate quite a few people with this conversation, Richard.
Yeah, I realised that. But I stuck with the piano. I even did keyboard harmony, and that was pretty unusual for a grade 8 trumpet exam.
Yes.
But I felt the piano gave me more musically, gave me harmony, it gave me a rhythm, gave me a sense. You know, when you start learning scales and arpeggios, gives you a sense of key. You learn a lot from learning to play the piano.
And Richard, were you writing music at this point as well, or was it all performance?
No, it was all performance based. I did write a little tune when I was very young. When I was in the singing company, there is a green hill far away was the words that I used, and so there's a little tune there. But I didn't really think that I was going to be a composer, to be honest. I thought I was going to be my second love was going to be conducting, but I thought, you know, piano and instrumental playing was going to be the way for me.
Well, so I've had the privilege of meeting your piano teacher.
Right.
Sort of in recent years. But can you just talk to us a little bit about, you know, why you wanted to go to the Royal College, you know, what that experience was like, and then, you know, maybe tell us about the next piece of music that you've chosen as well.
I auditioned for all the colleges. I got in them all except for the Royal Northern, and I think they were being kind of area specific at the time, and why I chose the college over the academy was purely that somebody who was being taught by John Barstow, who's the gentleman we're talking about, he was where I was at college, where I was before the Royal College, and he recommended him. They made me feel very welcome when I auditioned there. So they heard both. I could have done a double first at college. They were interested in my trumpet playing as well. So I felt kind of very well accepted at the college, and so that's where I ended up with John Barstow as my piano teacher.
So Rachmaninoff too. Can you tell me why you've chosen this and why it's, you know, has such a big influence on you?
Rachmaninoff had a big influence because it was tuney.
Mm.
Everybody likes a tune. Rachmaninoff wrote them in spades, and his accompaniment was so imaginative, hard to play. I know, but whatever he wrote was fantastic. He had big hands. I've got relatively large hands, so I could handle the span.
Hey, I was going to say, you're lucky on that. The rest of us lesser mortals can't do it.
And Rack 2 was a kind of a bar that I set myself, thinking if I could ever play that, that would be great. So actually, you're going to hear a recording of me playing it. This was a recording that was made with the Chicago Staff Band, with Bill Himes conducting.
Excellent.
Bill arranged this piece for brass band. So this was a bit of a last minute. I remember it was a last minute gig. I think he was let down by somebody, and so I had, I don't know, just a couple of months or so. But anyway, we did the Rachmaninoff. They made a CD of it, and here's the last couple of minutes or so.
Fantastic. Well, we're really going to enjoy listening to this. You've talked already a couple of times about melody and melodic shape, and I think certainly in all your compositions you do write a fantastic melody. But can you just talk to me a little bit now about maybe army situations where you've heard music that's inspired you and I guess influenced the way that you write a tremendous tune?
I was before I joined the ISS, I was a member of the ISB actually, and
Excellent.
but I didn't do very much. I joined in March and I left in September.
Is there anything we need to know, Richard?
Well, after a Royal Albert Hall performance and a couple of weekends and a recording, it was Howard Paris, my predecessor in the ISS, was leaving, and I used to work for Ray Bowes, of course, being a member of the music editorial department, and so there was a natural progression for me to go into the ISB. To replace Peter Ayling, who was going into training. So that was all set up, and so I joined in March, and I was going to take over the kind of the piano soloist job in September. Anyway, Howard was leaving the ISS, and Norman needed a pianist, and he knew I was working in music editorial. So one lunchtime, he came over to music editorial and spoke to Ray Bowes. And he said that his need was greater than his Ray.
Did they get on well?
Mostly, yes.
Mostly.
And so there was a very kind of Ray was going to approach me about it. So after Norman had the conversation with Ray, Norman went. I didn't even know he'd come. And then Ray called me into his office, and he said, I've had a representation from the ISS. They would like you to join the ISS as their pianist. And I immediately said, yes, I would, because that was always my dream. When I heard the ISS was starting, I always wanted to be that pianist who played these terrific piano accompaniments, you know.
Yes.
So Ray very graciously allowed me to be transferred into the ISS.
Oh, well, we have a lot to thank Ray Bowes for then.
Anyway, going back to the question.
So back to the question about melody.
Yes, yeah, I was listening. I was in the ISB. It was the Royal Albert Hall, and that year the ISS sang Reflections.
Oh,
and that really touched me. And Norman put just very subtle lighting down in kind of an accompaniment to this. And as the song kind of just faded away at the end, the lighting came down almost to absolute darkness. Just so simple but powerful. But the melodic lines, the harmony, just the fact that you could make so much impact. It's unaccompanied singing. There are no bells and whistles. Quite difficult to sing, but it was so beautifully crafted. Words were Catherine Baird, and she can really touch the heart through her poetry with not very many words. She can get right there, and combined together, this piece called Reflections was a game changer for me vocally. Certainly, you know, it was the normal 4-part harmony, a cappella singing that we've been so used to. Something else. This was something else. This had texture. This had 7 or 8 parts, and it was beautiful, and it was so beautifully sung. That really kind of touched me, and thinking, wow, this is something else that is now possible from a cappella singing that I'd not heard in the army before.
No, I mean, it's a glorious piece of music. And as you say, Catherine Baird's words are just amazing. But Norman's setting, and it was quite different in a way to some of the arrangements and the music he'd written, but it's made a big impact, I believe, with everybody who's involved and takes the Army vocal music seriously. So let's listen now to Norman Bearcroft's Reflections. Such beautiful music to listen to, and a delight to hear, always to hear it. Now, we also know you as a tremendously able composer, and although you went to the Royal College to study piano and trumpet, I'm guessing you might have had some opportunities there to develop understanding about harmony and form, structure. You know, can you tell me something about that?
When you go to college as a pianist, you're not obliged to join an orchestra. Obviously, you can't if you're a piano player. So what you have to keep certain things going for a couple of years longer than anyone else. So if you're there as a pianist, you have to be in the choir for 2 years instead of 1, because you're not involved in an orchestra. If I was an instrumental player, let's say. And so one of the things that you have to keep going for a little bit longer is theory, and I quite enjoyed theory. I loved it, and I was always interested in the technicalities of construction. And so I stuck with theory right through the 4 years of my time at the college. So whilst I wasn't doing composition as a study, um, I still had a composing teacher, Tim Salter, who is quite a renowned composer. He was my theory teacher, composer teacher, and I stuck with him, and we used to do quite complex exercises in
Did you
theory.
write anything that you shared with other people during that time?
No, not really, because I treated it very much as a one-to-one kind of theoretical understanding. But I didn't write anything that was performed at that time.
Right.
That time, I didn't feel that was my place because I wasn't there as a composer. But I did learn the art of fugue writing and kind of the techniques of all that.
Yeah.
I think.
So you had to sort of write a fugue a week or something.
Yeah, at least 1 week. I was writing 1 week. Yeah.
Yeah, it takes yes, it takes me back. A great thing to do. Okay, so how then did when did you start composing more seriously?
Well, when I joined Music Editorial, which was the November after I left the Royal College, so I left in June, July time, and then in November I joined Music Editorial for the Salvation Army, and that's where you start having opportunities to study other composers, army composers' works. Eric Ball was still writing stuff at that time, and so I was learning from these people. And so when an opportunity came, like a page in a scene company edition, then you'd have an opportunity to write something, and that kind of expanded. And general series, festival series, triumph series, all the brass band music and the vocal music.
So was it more kind of writing for a purpose rather than being inspired?
Oh
Or
yeah,
was it by being surrounded by creative people?
yeah, very much. I suppose in the very early days you write when you're inspired, but that soon wanes, and in a position like that, the demand very much outweighs the wait for the inspiration for the piece. So I've got to have a piece here, I've got to have a piece there. Oh, we need something for that. And that is almost overwhelming. And later on, when I became the head of department, it's not expected. Nobody says you must do this, but you feel the responsibility of you've got to lead the way here. And so I was writing songs almost for every Sing to the Lord edition that came out in the early days. And
were you given any instructions for that? Were you told to write a devotional piece or a praise piece?
It was. You made that choice. It was really just to balance out what was required. And normally, what was required was a short, snappy, upbeat song. Something like my version of "Every Time I Feel the Spirit." Women's voice songs were being published in those days, and so and men's voices, songs for Home League. They've all stopped now because of lack of demand, but they were all being published in that time and demanded certain types of music, and whatever that was, you needed to provide it. So very much a demand composer.
All right. So when you were head of music editorial, what were you looking for in the compositions that were coming in?
I was looking for a balance. So I wanted quality, and I wanted a balanced quality, and it's you just couldn't you just didn't know what was coming in. Something came in, you looked at it, and it really kind of, wow, that was great. Really rung the bell straight away. I was looking through the files. I found Chris Mallett's "To God Be the Glory."
Oh yes, yeah.
Sitting
Right for Bristol Eastern, I have to say.
Yes, sitting in the files, and so I guess I not rescued it, but I pulled it out the file and put it straight in. So I thought it was perfect for what I wanted.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, which army composers have really influenced you? You mentioned Eric Ball, obviously, a few minutes.
Yeah, Eric Ball for band for sure. I've got to say Norman Bearcroft. I've got to say Ray Bowes, because I was so immersed into their psyche, because everything that Norman wrote, I played. Everything that Ray Bowes wrote vocally, I played.
Yes.
And then later on, Len Ballantyne was the same. So I was the head of editorial when Len came. So he was like a pot of gold. Then was. So I thought, right, I've made a pact that I would have at least one of his songs in every Sing to the Lord issue. And again, we were singing his stuff. I was printing his stuff, and his kind of vocal style. I learnt a lot from, and so I've got to include him as well.
When you are writing for the army, and when you were producing this sort of musical Salvations, I guess it still was at that point.
It changed. Yeah, it changed.
It changed to went to Sing to the Lord during your time. What kind of mindset do you have in that? Obviously, the groups that will be performing the songs in those periodicals are of varying sizes and experience. What sort of things do you think about?
That's one of the challenges that the head of editorial has. In a single vocal book, there's opportunities for 6 to 8 songs, and there's got to be a variety that the good songster brigades at the time can give them something to go at, as well as the smaller ones. And so for a time, they had the festival series, the choral.
Yes.
Festival.
Oh yes, I remember that well. Mighty River and all that.
That's right. Yeah, Ken's.
Yeah, wonderful.
A great piece from Ken, and Les Condon had one in
yes.
there. But yeah, so there was an opportunity there to try and expand the choral availability of songs, but sadly that didn't hold because of the lack of people buying the festival series. It wasn't financially viable.
No.
So there is a challenge to try and get a wide-ranging opportunity of songs in that book.
I think at the moment we're all really missing singing together, and so I'm delighted with your next choice, Let a Little Sunshine. Would you like to just tell us the situation that you wrote that for?
Yeah, well, Norman asked me to write this. This was the first time I'd had anything performed at the Royal Albert Hall. It was for the Royal Albert Hall Songster Leaders Council's 1992. It was Norman's retirement year. So I wrote this song. Philip Coots, the General Coots' grandson, wrote the words to that. And again, it was bright and breezy, and I think it engaged with the audience. I think, and so it was great fun. The ISS used to sing it every weekend.
Maybe it's time we brought it back out again then.
It hit the kind of the mass songster spot for a long time, and so it was it gave me a lot of publicity, that song, and seemed to catch on very well through the army. But here we go. This is the first performance at the the ISS were singing it before this. As a off the programme song, but here's the Royal Albert Hall performance with the brass and the percussion and everything going, and Let a Little Sunshine.
Excellent. I've been absolutely delighted that during my 17 and a half years as Staff Songster leader, you've written a tremendous amount of music for us. We were using some of your material before then, but it's always great, and you feel very privileged when someone has created a song with your particular group in mind. The first one was Let All Things Praise, but I have a great fondness also for a wonderful piece that you wrote for us called Anastasis. Do you want to just talk to us a little bit about writing for the ISS in general, but also that particular piece with words by Malcolm Westwood?
Yes, it's a joy and a privilege to write so much for the ISS, because there's so much quality. There's so much. The range is bigger, of course, with.
Although you do push the envelope a little bit sometimes.
I do, yeah. I do.
The top sopranos might say that.
But to have that level of opportunity for a composer is a privilege, and I know that I guess it's in some ways it's a lot easier to write for the ISS because you've got a bigger arena in terms of the the width of the notes to the height of the notes to play with, but and it's going to be of good quality. So it's absolutely a thrill and a delight to write for the ISS. The problem that there are problems with it, and one of the problems is that if you start writing difficult music like I do when we do something, not many people can sing it. It takes it out of the arena of a lot of other people, and so I can write something. It takes a long time and make it complex and make it difficult, and the ISS will sing a fantastic job, but it's very limited to the amount of times that the ISS can sing it because nobody else can. So it is a privilege, and I'm glad that you use the amount of songs that you do, because if you didn't, then nobody else could. And to know that you're going to get some, a possible recording on a CD as well helps the kind of the momentum, because if it's not recorded and you stop singing it, the thing will die.
Well, we certainly love to sing it, Richard, because actually you are writing for us as a group.
Yes.
So you also know what the group can do. And I suppose what the pianist can do as well, because you don't hold back in the piano parts, do you, Richard?
Well, that leads very nicely on to Anastasis, because I wrote this before I rejoined in 2013. So I think this is about 2012 I wrote this. Elliot was the pianist, and he's a tremendous pianist. And
another alumnus of the Royal College.
Yeah. So I thought I'd give Elliot something to play, and so I gave him this tremendous chromatic scale towards the end of this, leading into this kind of victorious version of Love's Redeeming Work Is Done. And so I heard this for the first time at Hendon Highlights. Was that the very first performance?
That was the first performance, okay. And actually it was Elliot's first outing, so it was quite it was quite a big night that night.
So anyway, he did a fantastic job, of course, and so I didn't realise I was, a few years later, I was going to be back in the ISS and having to play it myself. So that was something. But I asked for an Easter. Easter is so inspiring for me as a composer, and it fits very nicely in the kind of a musical form. You've got the Friday, the Saturday, and the Sunday. It just kind of fits nicely. And so I spoke to a friend of mine, Malcolm Westwood, who was my commanding officer for a while at Chatham, and his knowledge of the Easter story is absolutely fantastic. He knows every detail of the progression from the cross to the resurrection, and it was absolutely, his knowledge is to be commended, and I know that this would really appeal to him. So he wrote a book of poems, and I found two, I think, that I really liked, the Friday and the Saturday. then I needed something for the Sunday. And I told him that I wanted to include Christ the Lord is risen today. So he did that especially for that song. And I played it to him over the phone, and he loved the outcome of it. So I was very pleased as an entity of that piece of music. Norman Bearcroft had used Love's Redeeming Work is Done in a previous song,
right.
But he treated it quite differently. It was magnificent. It was big. It was an energised arrangement, but it was more classical in form. And this didn't have the kind of the rhythm and the percussion and the accompaniment that
It's got a real sense of drive, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Mm.
So I didn't feel it was too close to copy. So anyway, I put that in, and that setting, I love that setting. I love the tune. Christ the Lord is risen today, and it seems to work well at this pitch in this setting. And I can remember when we were in Australia a few years ago now, and we sang it Easter Sunday morning, and terrific.
Oh, it's fantastic. I mean, the middle movement too, you just get that feeling of desolation. And the words and the music work so well together. It's interesting you're talking about the piano part. When we went to Old Orchard Beach, they had, because it's all outside, they had one of these sort of top level clavinovas, but Elliot was going at such a fast speed, and that the keyboard couldn't keep up with it. Well, I'm delighted that you go just as fast as he does too. But, it's a thrilling piece of music, it really is, and that's another one we need to do the whole piece of again. And we've sung it in different languages as well, just to let you know. Anyway, I hope you're going to enjoy Richard Phillips, Anastasis. You know, Richard, because you were there, that we had two fantastic 40th anniversary events at the beginning of 2020. And on both of those weekends, we used your song Sing for Joy because it seemed absolutely apt. One, because we love the song, but actually that's why we sing. We sing for joy of the Lord. But I don't believe this was one that you wrote for the Staff Songsters. Can you just let me know? I'm not sure what the background is.
Well, it was written for Territorial Music School in July. And when Robert Redhead came over from Canada, he put a different slant on the music school. And every year the choir, everybody came together, the whole school, to sing quite a significant choral work, rather than having mass bands, which was the tradition up to then. So it's a little bit of a change. Trevor Davies took over from Robert Redhead as Territorial Music Secretary, and it was his idea that we wrote that Symphony of Psalms was the title of the week. And he asked myself, Len, and he was going to do one, to write a setting of 3 psalms. And so I knew that I was going to write a setting of the first movement. Len did the last movement, and Trevor, he wrote the middle movement. So we had an idea of the kind of the feel that we needed about this piece. And so I flipped through the psalms and landed on 95. Funny enough, Len landed on 96. So that would have been interesting had it been the same one. Both sing for joy, sing to the Lord as well. So it was a first movement setting that I had to do of a Psalm 95, and what I did, I had all the translations out of my desk, and I took each verse and looked at all the translations and thought, okay, that feels the best one to me. So it's a mixed match of International Version, Good News, but the Living Bible, and so anyway, that's the background. And it was the first movie. We had brass. We had 6-piece brass to accompany with percussion. We all had that opportunity, and so we were writing for all the same kind of orchestration.
Well, it's an absolutely glorious piece, and and it's very singable. I think people can sing, enjoy it, and remember those scriptural words as well. I think that's one of the wonderful things about singing, isn't it? You learn those words and they stick in your head.
You do, yeah, you do. And I couldn't have recited Psalm 95 before then.
But you can now.
I could get pretty close to it now. Yeah.
Okay, well then let's enjoy Sing for Joy. always uncomfortable when people ask me to choose a favorite piece of vocal or piano music because I love so many. However, as I'm asking the questions, I can ask you. Do you have, a small number of favorite pieces, or is there one that stands out to you that, if you were going to your metaphorical desert island, you would take with you?
I have a number of songs I love playing. When I first started the ISS, I was drawn to something called Good Cheer. That Norman, it was a three-part song, but all the movements were bright. And that was unusual because normally the middle movement is down, but to play with a piano vamp, I love doing because rhythm is part of my being, I suppose. So that I enjoyed. I always used to love playing the piano solo in "Remember Me." That is just such a beautiful song, and Ray was just inspired when he wrote that. That is a beautiful thing. I love the tradition of the old ones as well. Grant Us Thy Peace, Jesus Himself Drew Near, those kind of George Marshall songs. And that, like Reflections did, George Marshall did for communicating what I felt Norman did later. George Marshall communicated something that was so simple, so beautifully harmonised, strict four-part harmony. That's all it was. I say that's all it was, but beautifully done.
I always enjoy talking with you about music because we very often have the same taste. And you've mentioned a few of the Real Army classics there. Is there one that really stands out to you as being, I suppose, something very special for you as an individual?
Yes, it was interestingly enough, when the first ever piece of music I conducted as a local officer, as a deputy songster leader, was Wilf Heaton's My Treasure. So it was probably a ridiculous choice because I didn't know anything about anything other than I was, at college. But
a wonderful high bit for the gentleman.
Yeah.
Just before the chorus.
So as a rookie leader, I launched myself with My Treasure. I do admire the old songs and their construction and their ability to communicate straight to the heart. I think that's probably why we called heart songs. Yeah. Why we did, because the directness and how they speak, and some beautiful words by Ivy Morby. With music by George Marshall is a particular famous song and a favourite of mine. Lord, 'tis thy tender touch now we implore. Day with its toil is done, labour is o'er. Now in the evening while shadows fall, grant us thy peace. We give to thee our all. And it's just such a beautiful benediction that speaks to me, talks directly to my heart. A song that I picked for my dad's funeral because it would be such a beautiful benediction for his life. And this song is a very special song because of that reason, and because it's so profound and so beautifully crafted. And I know that it certainly blesses me when I hear it, and has blessed many people over the years.
Well, I'm sure it will as we listen together to Grant Us Thy Peace.
No.
if we look back to just a year ago, we had a wonderful evening featuring your 4 choral symphonies, and it was just absolutely thrilling. Your beautiful orchestrations played by the London Mozart players, and I think the very hard work the ISS had done in the run up to that particular event made it something that I will certainly never forget. But can you I mean, one of the things I'm very aware with you is that you are a great collaborator. You know, you work well with your librettists, with your poets that write for you. You work well with me as well, actually. You know, we talk about something if we think we want to put it in a different direction. But would you like to just talk to me a little bit, particularly about your relationship with Stephen Pearson and how that works? And then maybe something about how Choral Symphony #1 came about, because I remember the world premiere of that as well.
Well, Stephen is a very highly talented man. He was a professional journalist for a while. He worked for the TV Times for a while as a journalist, and he worked for the Salvation Army, literally downstairs from where I was working in music editorial. He was downstairs in the Salvationist office. So, firstly, there was an immediacy with Stephen. Also, I worked with Peter Cook. Peter Cook is another very strong lyricist.
A wonderful lyricist.
Yes, and he wrote many verses of poetry, and he worked just round the corner when I was at THQ. He was down the corridor, round the corner, and so he was available. And so all these people that I suppose I first worked with could do things fairly quickly, and when I was on a deadline to get something out, I know that I could rely on those two. So that's kind of developed really over the years. With Stephen, you don't just get a lyricist, you get a man with a very strong Christian faith, and also a very skilled musician. And so whatever rhythm we ended up with, I know that he could write anything pretty much to any rhythm that I could come up with. Now, it wasn't always that way round. It was I always used to like to have the words, because when I started writing, composing, I had the songbook as my first resource for writing something. So I always stuck with, there are the words, I need to write a tune. And so that was the process that I went through, even if the words were original. I like to have the words first. Malcolm Westwood likes to do the words first, preferably. But Stephen, he's very much a both ways man. And when we started writing the symphony, we took it in turns to go first, to write our bit first.
I mean, he's a good musician as well, isn't he, Steve?
Yeah, he's a very fine trombone player. He used to be the principal trombone player in the ISB, and he used to play in other brass bands as well. And a fine musician. He understood the musical aspect of the song. When it came to symphonies, I was very much influenced by Robert Redhead's Pastoral Symphony for brass band, and thinking that might be a good way to go. But I don't know anything that was done on a similar basis, apart from Childhood Suite, but RSA didn't call it a symphony, but it's pretty much a symphony. And so I thought that done it in a kind of compressed form, it's got to last no more than 15 minutes, because that's the kind of appreciative.
That's how much you're allotted.
For performance, and as well as kind of attention span for army audiences, So I thought it would be a nice idea. We were at Birmingham Symphony Hall, so the word symphony kind of joined up to that. And so, okay, we'll give it a go. 4-movement piece, and so I very much got going on the first movement. Stephen got going on the words for the second. I told him what I was doing, and then we swapped over. So we kind of did it like that. And then I think more and more and more throughout the four symphonies, that we kind of just found a really good understanding. And I think in the last one, I just went for the music. I knew that I had a strong conviction where I wanted this to go. Stephen connected up with that and kind of mirrored what I wanted to go with. Whoever thought that when I wrote that in 2014, I think I'd been back in the ISS for a year or so, that I went down that path. And it was at Guernsey, wasn't it? The first performance?
Yeah, I think it was.
And so, who knew that we were still, we were going to have a fourth symphony. We were going to have the London Mozart players, and we were performing it at the 40th anniversary at the Fairfield Hall. I mean, that was
well, that's been what's been so wonderful, isn't it? It's been organic. I mean, I still think you've got a fifth one in you, Richard. I don't want you to do 9, but
no.
But
well,
I think
you've got to be careful because Brahms only did 4. So
and he wrote great tunes.
yes, he did. So it was a kind of an organic thing. Yes, you're right, but number 4 wouldn't have happened, and I have to say this, without the encouragement of people like yourself, members of the ISS. And the kind of the reaction that number 1 got, because if it was just an okay reaction and okay you do number 2 thinking okay well I'll do one more just to see, but then it kind of was snowballing, and so number 3 came along, and then number 4, and so right okay, and it was Rob Moy actually. On one Wednesday night rehearsal that said, when we were rehearsing number 1, he said, "Oh, you should do 4, and then you can make a CD of it." And
Really?
So none of us knew at that time.
No. Well, I mean, they are all thrilling, but I'm delighted that you've chosen today for us to listen to Choral Symphony number 1, because that's where it all started.
That's where it all started.
Richard, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk with you about your musical voyage. I think we could have gone on for hours because there were all sorts of areas we didn't touch, but it's great to know about your own personal music making, your own personal experience of the Lord. But you need to know that through your music, you challenge and inspire people to think about their spiritual lives and make them think about things that are bigger than they are and to follow Christ in the best way they possibly can. Now, this is an unfair question, but if I said to you, a little bit like Desert Island Discs again, that you could only take one of these pieces of music with you to your desert island, can you choose one?
Well, Dorothy, that is a tough question, and one that I find very difficult to answer. I don't like, funnily enough, whatever people think, I don't really like promoting myself. So I'm going to rule anything that I've written out of it. And I think if I had to choose one, I'd go with George Marshall and Grant Us Thy Peace.
Well, thank you, Richard. It's a joy to work with you. I think together, hopefully, we enable people to sing for joy. Thank you for being with us and sharing your musical voice.
Thank you.